Hi everyone, in this video I'll be discussing finding a C5 Corvette, the donor car for our Factory 5 GTM Supercar. Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel about building a kit car and other car topics. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the notification buttons below and share with others on social media. As I'm raising funds for my other Factory 5 build project, 33 Hot Rod, I've had some free time at nights to do some research, and I was finally like, well, let's go look at some C5s. Maybe I could find something that's economical enough to either part out right away, or if you saw a few videos ago, I was thinking about an LS engine daily driver. Could I get a C5 that I could drive for 3 years and then part out for the GTM? Two birds with one stone. This is how intense my mind has been churning. Just give me a project. Give me something to do. So I went out and looked at a few C5s. I wanted it cheap enough to make sense, but nice enough to drive for a while, and I needed a good interior, otherwise it was worth nothing in resale as parts. And my experience was mystifying, absurd, illogical, and bizarre. Okay, so car number one was a 2001 all-yellow convertible Corvette that looked amazing in the pictures. I went out to check this car, and at first look, the outside was awesome looking. Turns out it was recently painted. Okay, I don't have any issues with that. So I was only allowed to be a passenger, which is fine. This is my first C5 Corvette experience. The guy seemed to maintain the drivetrain well. The car was newly painted, but everything else was never taken care of. Anything like doors, center console, ashtray, cup holders, parts around the heads-up display, defroster vents, the shocks that held up the hood and the trunk did not work. They were all damaged. The hood liner was falling off the car. So then I started looking low on the outside of the car, and there was a major scrape and actual hole, about a silver dollar size, in the passenger side door area. This was not in the pictures that I saw. And he was like, oh yeah, I hit a curb as I was parking. I'm like, well, what other damage has there been? Well, the car was stolen out of my garage once. Well, how did that happen? Well, I leave my keys and my cars in the garage. What? Are you joking me? As I was thinking about this, I'm like, well, if I'm going to use this as a daily driver, it's beat enough that I have to actually replace some of these parts. I got to fix the tears in the seats. I got to put all these little trim pieces and all this stuff. And it added up to be like, I don't know, $1,500 worth of replacement parts. And then, later on, I could sell those parts. But, I'd be embarrassed to drive a car that was in that bad shape. That was the end of that one. Fast forward to car number two. Now, this one I found online. I think it was about a 2004 red coupe. Looked really good from the outside. Some of the pictures of the interior were kind of spotty. I couldn't tell if what I was seeing was just the shot, like a bad picture, or, what am I seeing? I saw something. I couldn't tell what it was. So I found this car selling for $14,000 on one site, and then the same as that car was selling on another site for $10,000. This was all private party. And I contacted them through both sites and never heard anything for days, maybe even a week. And then out of the blue, I finally get a call from this guy. And we talked about a few things, and I agreed to come see the car. So a friend and I drove down. It was about 40 minutes away, and the car was sitting outside the garage. I rang the doorbell, and the guy opened up the door, handed me the keys, and said, take it for a drive. Let me know if you have any questions when you come back. And I was like, all right. The last guy wouldn't let me drive the car. This guy doesn't even want to be in the car. Whatever. Okay. At least there's no stress and someone breathing down my neck while I'm trying to evaluate the car. And I created a spreadsheet of what I needed to look for when looking at a used C5. So I wanted to go through it thoroughly, and this was kind of the perfect opportunity since he wasn't there. So I opened up the car, and it looked like a cat has been living in it for a year or two. The guy never vacuumed the car, even to show it to someone. And so it wasn't the camera's fault with the pictures. It was like super bad. When you opened up even the center console, it was caked with hair. Now, the center console is closed, so how is that caked with hair too? It looked like this car's never been vacuumed for like years. So we hopped in the car, and it's the first time I'm actually behind the wheel of a C5. And now, keep in mind, I'm checking out the Corvette, but I just rebuilt one of these engines, and in my mind, I'm going, well, what is my engine going to feel like? How well is it going to perform? So we're in the middle of nowhere. There's a town 30 minutes out of my main city, and I had a chance to open it up, and this freaking engine was performing awesome. It was an automatic, which I'm thinking about putting in my hot rod, and it was solid too. Now, over the phone, I asked this guy, what type of maintenance have you done to the car? And he said, oh, I haven't had to do anything except change the oil. And I was like, wow, great. Well, the real answer to that question was, the car is falling apart, and I chose not to do any maintenance. All 4 wheel bearings were making noises. When I turned the car hard, there was all sorts of noises in the front end. A shock was leaking. The interior was a mess. And anything that was hand-touched, like the last car, was all jacked up. And when I pulled into the driveway back from my test drive, I could see 8 to 10 drops of oil on it, just from when he pulled it out of the garage for me to see. I looked into the garage, which was still open, and you could see where he took a bunch of rags and cleaned up a good 3-foot section of oil. And there was still a big old mess on the ground. And I turned to my friend and I said, hey, I'm not sure he ever changed oil. I think he just poured it through the engine. It just sifts right through. And then we both busted out laughing. Then I noticed that the car was maybe hit from behind or pushed up into something, since the side panels were bowed against the trunk lid. So I told him everything that was wrong with the car, which took a while. And I told him the car was only worth $5,000 in its condition, which honestly it really was. This thing was beat worse than anything I've ever seen. And of course, he didn't accept that, so we started walking back to the car, and my friend was like, what is that? And I'm like, what? I just bought a brand new pair of shorts and shirt, which I was wearing for the first time, and all across my back is black grease from sitting in this guy's car. Let me show that to you. Brand new pair of shorts. It's just everywhere. You can see this is here for me, like sliding into the car, but this is the first day I wear these shorts, and that's what it looks like. And my shirt I threw out because it was worse than this. So luckily we had a towel in the car so I could get, into the car without being naked and not ruining the interior of the car we came in. So not only did I spend an hour and a half round trip driving for this, I lost a whole brand new set of clothes in the process. What is going on? So then, fast forward to the third car. I found another car, and this one I knew had some issues. He was only asking $6,000 for it. I got a hold of this guy, and he was like, hey, let's meet later today. And I'm like, great. I could be by 5 p.m. He's like, awesome, I'll call you later. And that was it. Never heard from the guy. I called, I texted a few times, and the car was still up online for a few weeks. Just totally shady. And it's like, I don't have a problem if you sold the car to someone else. Just return my call. Don't ignore me. So after all this, I decided to check out one more car. And I was like, if all these cars are that beat and uncared for, then what does a nice low mileage car look and feel like? So there was one other yellow coupe I saw online, and it was way out of my price range, but I had to know, is this car beat too? Is there any saneness in the world? We're talking about a car in the range of 15 to 18 years old, and these are Corvettes with clean titles. These aren't cars souped up and raced or salvage rebuilt. These are stock Sunday cars. Why are they so trashed? So I went to go see this car. It was in the $16,000 range, which was out of my price range for parting out a car. Why would you do that? But now I can talk the talk. I'm less reliant on my spreadsheet. Turns out this guy has multiple vets. He's a Corvette fanatic. His garage is kept clean. So far so good. I'm in the right place. So I hop in to go for a drive, And sure enough, we have immaculate interior. This is really what a Corvette is supposed to look like. Okay, so I took it for a small drive and I noticed a weird sound when I put it in reverse that was coming from the trans or differential. This could be a $2,000 repair, I'm not sure. Other than that, pretty good across the board. Now what was weird about the paint was all the different panels were sun fading at the edges differently. It was definitely the original paint, but might have been some kind of Arizona sun issue with a solid color paint job. I'm not really sure. But every edge would be like a little bit lighter and then darker in the center of the panel, and that was just a little bit weird. And it kind of made the car look a little, frumpy and not that awesome fresh Corvette look you expect. Now, of course, you can negotiate to take the car to a mechanic and get it looked at and have the trans fixed if needed. The paint is what it is, make an offer or whatever. But this guy was a solid Corvette owner and I had no issues with him. So as I drove home, I told myself that a C5 Corvette as a daily driver is not for me. And the more I thought about it, parting out a C5 Corvette, I can't get a good enough car at a fair enough price to make it worth my while. They're all beat. Everyone thinks they have a gold mine when they don't. And at least these owners didn't. So if you're looking to part out a Vette, it's probably best to grab one from a salvage yard with a rear end collision and low mileage so the interior is worth something. Till next time, please hit the subscribe and notification buttons, and have a great day.